Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I have a very special guest. This is someone who is one of the amazing founders in my emerging brand incubator, someone who I genuinely adore, and I listen to their podcast and I just love all of their content. I personally have learned so much about a new way of looking at my career. So, Janel, Abrahami, thank you for being on the show.
Yay, I am so happy to be here.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy to be here with you and have you here. For anyone who's new to Janelle, Janelle is a career coach for multi-hyphenates, which we'll talk more about shortly, and also the founder of Lunch Break Podcast, which honestly is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to while I'm working. So thank you for producing that great show. And today's conversation, I really wanted to learn more about your story. Obviously, I know quite a bit from working with you, but for someone who's new, talk us through how you started your brand, how you started your business, and also your perspective on career, because it's, I think, absolutely the future of how we're going to be looking at career.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I
You're
agree
welcome.
with that. We are really talking about the future, and that's what I'm focused on. But I have been in the career development world for my entire career. So I fell into career development and more specifically recruiting and job searching and that whole lovely experience that we all adore when I was in college, when I was in my undergraduate experience at NYU. I just fell into an on campus job working at the Career Center and realized, hey, this really lights me up. I really, really enjoy the experience and the process of helping people figure out what their passions are, how they can make an impact on the world, what they think their professional purpose may be. And if they have no clue what that is, how to start discovering that. And so at the Career Center at NYU, that turned into a 9-year career in different places in corporate HR. So learning and development, recruiting, HR business partnership, and consulting. I pretty much did it all in corporate HR. And after I stepped away from one really toxic job in the middle of the pandemic where I was just totally burnt out, I realized I don't really know if I'm on the professional path I want to be on anymore. And I hope and think that a lot of listeners to this podcast can relate to this. But when you are such a people pleaser, when you grow up getting those gold stars and checking all the boxes and having people tell you that you're really going places and you're doing all these great things, when you get to your late 20s, early 30s, and you think, hang on a second, I did all the things I was supposed to do, but I'm not even really sure that I want this anymore. That was a really difficult moment
Right.
of like facing myself when I realized, you know what, I actually want something of my own. I'm ready to create a career with my name on it. This is Janelle from blank instead of being another employee at X company or another HR pro at Y company. I had this like indistinguishable or unextinguishable desire to create my own thing and put it out there in the world. And I didn't exactly know what that was yet at the time, but it eventually became a career coaching business. And I started my own business as a career coach, first taking on one-on-one clients and then creating a group course to help people clarify their career goals and land an epic new job that they really loved once they decided where they really wanted to go. And that course was called Pivot with Purpose. And it helped almost 100 mid-level career millennials clarify their career goals, land amazing new jobs, and even start their own things just like I did. And so that's when I realized I'm not the only one who has this craving, this desire to define myself or stretch myself outside of my corporate job. And so I went full time into entrepreneurship. I spent 2 years building this career coaching business, building my personal brand as a career expert. And while that was really, really thrilling and exciting and the best learning experience I ever could have gotten, I feel like I got 3 MBAs in that time for a fraction of the cost, actually making money instead of spending
Right.
money.
Yes.
Um, I also came to a very similar inflection point after 2 years of entrepreneurship where I realized, hey, as exciting as this has been, I actually don't think this is the only solution either for me. And so what I got a little bit more comfortable talking about, even on my own podcast, was the fact that being a solo entrepreneur, as I was for the past 2 years, was actually really lonely. And there were parts of the corporate world that I still really missed, like being on a small, scrappy, mighty team, like having that socialization opportunity and being part of a larger culture that didn't always ride on me. And I realized that I had been in fight or flight mode for the past 2 years as a solo entrepreneur. So I realized if I'm someone who likes to think about and carve the way of the future of our careers, what if that looks like being a multi-hyphenate and not having to choose between being a corporate go-getter or a full-time entrepreneur? There has to be a fulfilling way to blend both of those identities so you get the best of both worlds and are able to honor those desires without pigeonholing yourself into like, oh, I'm just a corporate grinder or I'm out here on my own being an entrepreneur. And so now I'm both. I used everything that I knew and have taught my clients about landing new jobs to land honestly the job that was on my vision board. So now
Love
I
that.
have 5. I like manifested my perfect dream job that I'm in right now. I have a corporate job and I still have a business. I am still a career coach and I still create career coaching content. I still create content around the future of careers. I am a public speaker. I'm a keynote speaker. I have digital products that are available for people to download and use. And so I'm still running my own thing with the satisfaction of also contributing in a corporate space.
After hearing your story, now everyone knows why I was so excited when you said yes to come onto the podcast, because that right there, Janel, is so inspiring, encouraging, and truly working with you. I have looked at my career with a new set of perspective, and it really opened up my business in so many different ways by just listening to you and your podcast. So I wanted to say thank you also. You helped me shift some things that I was feeling kind of stuck with in my own career. And genuinely, I was so inspired by your own story, and it helped me look at new perspectives of how I wanted to grow my business and my career in general. And it's been really cool. This past month has been like such a game changer. And it was just shifting my mindset a little bit around my own career. And I really contribute a lot of that to you and helping me shift that.
That's so cool. Thank you.
It really, of course. So what do you feel is one of the bigger differentiators in the career space? I feel just in general, I feel like it's either people are talking just about corporate career, climbing the corporate ladder, or entrepreneurship, which tends to be on like totally different sides of the spectrum. Like entrepreneurs are like, I can never get a job. I am unhireable. And that's the goal, to make yourself unhireable. And then people in corporate are like, oh, I'm assuming, I've never really worked in corporate. I had like one corporate job ever, but it was for a startup. But it's like, totally different. Like, don't get too out of the box. Like, here's your lane and stick to your lane. Like, don't try to be starting all this stuff over here, where entrepreneurship, you have to be starting all these things all the time. So like, how have you been really bridging that gap? Because again, it can feel like two polar opposites.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I completely agree that that is the perception, or that's what's most readily available to us to like see and consume, as it has to be one or the other of these buckets. Like,
right.
And trust me, my social media algorithm, because I have been a solo entrepreneur and because I have been somebody who is very ingrained in the corporate space, helping hundreds of clients succeed in the corporate world, it's either this is how to get promoted and this is how to land the job and what to say in the job interview and blah, 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 all that corporate jargon, or it's a scale to 6 figures by working 4 hours a week. And I was like, okay, but hang on a sec. Those are two very extreme sides of a spectrum for a population like you and me and folks who are around our age, who are on social media, who are getting a little braver and more comfortable sharing their points of view online and becoming influential on regardless of the scale, like I don't even want to use the words like micro influencer or anything like that, but are just seeing the possibility and sharing their points of view, what they're loving and what they're into. And that is blossoming into a really cool way for them to start to what I call diversify their career a little bit. So
Love that. Tell us more a little bit about that.
So I think of diversifying your career like diversifying a financial portfolio. And like caveat here, I'm not a finance girly. So the metaphor is going to be very basic. But if you have a portfolio of investments or stocks, your goal is to diversify that and diversify your income so that one investment or all of your money is not in one bucket. Right? It's the prudent thing to do. It's the smart strategic thing to do. And you're making more quicker by diversifying your investments or your assets. I take the same perspective to your career. So instead of saying, I'm just a corporate go-getter, or I'm really thriving in the 9 to 5, what if you thought about diversifying that by saying, okay, maybe the majority of my career sits in the corporate bucket, but I also have some entrepreneurial tendencies that I can honor by creating content online and maybe monetizing that content, or teaching live workshops on some of my hobbies like textiles or knitting, or starting my own media outlet like a podcast that I bring in really interesting people, monetizing a personal brand. When you think about diversifying your career, it's okay, if you, at the crux of that, is refusing to believe that it has to all sit in one basket, in one like folder.
One lane. One folder.
Yeah, exactly. If you're seeing like, okay, I'm going to invest in here, here, and here, and your career just sits into like one place on the table, that's how we've kind of grown up in the past like centuries, honestly, but even over the past decade, as entrepreneurship has become more attractive and sexier and more accessible to people, we're still hearing it be one or the other. You're an entrepreneur or you're in corporate. And there's a lot of animosity, I think, between those two identities as well, that has kept a lot of individuals from feeling comfortable owning both of them. So like either you're a corporate baddie and like you're climbing the corporate ladder and like you mean business, blah, blah, blah. And then you see entrepreneurs as like flighty or like too risky or too out there, or you're an entrepreneur and you're like, F the man, I could never have a corporate job. That's a sellout, blah, 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 blah. But really the reality is a lot of us sit in the middle of that spectrum. And there are many parts of us that honor both of those things. And so when I say diversifying your career, I'm really talking about honoring the curiosities that are natural to you.
I love that. And I think more and more people are opening up to that, especially during the last few years we've had of just seeing the change essentially overnight to so many industries, to so many jobs. A lot of people had to step more into entrepreneurialism to help fill in those gaps. And then some people who were an entrepreneur, had a small business, had to look for a job, a 9 to 5, go to corporate to sustain their life and their livelihood. So I think it's also an interesting time for a lot of people to be more curious and open to this because of the changes we've had the last few years. And something that you said earlier that I would love for you to touch more on is the multi-hyphenate. I think you're really speaking to the person that, similar to you and I, we have different facets of what we do and how we do it. And that's something you've really helped open my eyes to and feel excited again about, because you get sometimes burnt out and you're like, what am I doing? But you really helped me. And again, listening to your podcast, it gave me new energy to look at it. But what is a multi-hyphenate person? If someone's like, I think I am, I've kind of heard that before, how would you break that down for someone?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to sum it up right now is if you have ever struggled to answer the question, what do you do?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that might be a really good sign that you're a multi-hyphenate. I struggle with this right now. When someone asks me, what do you do? I almost have this little, like, I'm like a deer in the headlights, but that's what Kelly's been helping me do a lot here, is own who the heck I am and all of the amazing things that I do. But do I say that I manage learning and development at a tech company? Do I say that I'm a career coach? Do I say that I am a podcast host? Do I say that I'm a public speaker and a keynote speaker and I lead workshops for other companies? Which one do I start with? Where do I land? That is a really great indicator that you're a multi-hyphenate. But it doesn't even have to be to the extreme that I just articulated about myself. It could be like many of my clients who went through Pivot with Purpose, which is now my online course for you to really decide where you want to go with your corporate career and land an amazing new job. They realized, I want to stay in corporate. I want that stability. I'm an account executive at this marketing firm, and I am a textile enthusiast and I teach sewing classes, and I like create my own crochet or like needlepoint templates and I sell them online on Etsy. So I'm also an Etsy creator, blah, blah. Like they are multi-hyphenates in that way, that one job title cannot summarize and really encompass everything that they love to do professionally and all that they have to offer.
I love how you frame that, because I feel like anyone who follows me or follows you and listens to this podcast, I'm sure had that same like deer in the headlights when it's like, what do you do? I know for so long I've had like nightmares where I'm like, what if someone asked me what I do? And it was always a joke too with my parents. I'm like, what do I do? I would ask them and they're like, Kel, we can't get into this right now. We're going to say it wrong. You're going to get pissed off. Like, we are not going to play this game. I'm like, just guess. And the things that they would come out with, I'm like, what the hell?
Right.
Why are you saying just like the most random shit over the years of what they thought I did for a living? But I totally resonate with the fact that if you don't know how to articulate that perfectly, or there's not just one answer, you are a multi-hyphenate, and that's cool, right?
It's
like
amazing.
that gives you new opportunities, where I think in the past, especially like our parents' generation, it was like, you had a thing, this is your thing, don't deviate from that thing, right? But now it's very much embracing those different aspects of you, so you could diversify your career, that you do have new opportunities, that it could be yes and not either or. What advice would you give to someone who is maybe in corporate but wants to dip their toes into entrepreneurialism, or is in entrepreneurialism that wants to maybe work part-time or full-time in corporate? Like, what is that advice you would tell someone to get started of finding their groove with both of those aspects of them?
Such an amazing question. I feel like this question comes up in some shape or form a couple times a week for me.
Yeah.
And yes, because I like invite these conversations, but also it's a real thing that people are chewing on and trying to work through, or trying to solve for themselves. And so I think the advice that I've given that has resonated the most with people during these conversations is find your minimum viable product or your minimum viable path. Let's say called an MVP in like the business world, the entrepreneurship world, your minimum viable path. So I'm going to amend that. It's usually product, but I'm going to call it path for my purposes. And so what is the lowest hanging, most like foundational way that you can start experimenting with that other identity? So say you're a corporate go-getter. Let's use one of my friends, Melanie, for example. She went through Pivot with Purpose. She clarified what she really wants out of her corporate career because of that course. And she also realized, I have a lot more to offer outside of my 9-to-5 that I'm excited to explore. But what the heck could that be? So she had to land on her minimum viable path to start talking about and creating and interacting with people around the other things that she was passionate about, which is mindfulness and positive thinking, positive psychology. So her minimum viable path to see, like, how could I start talking about this in a way that could turn into a job, could turn into another facet of my career. It started with a guided workshop that she did within Pivot with Purpose for other people who bought this course. So we all joined the same call. Sorry, there was a siren.
No worries.
We all joined this Zoom call, and Melanie guided us through a workshop on how to cultivate positive thinking and positive psychology during the work week. We gave her feedback. She was able to do a test run, and she's like, okay, I really loved the way that felt. First and foremost, I am naturally good at this and really excited about it. And I have feedback now on how to make this better. Now, what do I want to do with it from here? Could I deliver it to my team at work and have this contribute to, you know, my visibility internally? Could I have it contribute to my prospects of getting a promotion? Yes. And maybe I could turn this into like a digital resource that I can monetize, or I could turn it into something that I can sell to other companies who have a priority on employee well-being. So because she figured out her minimum viable path to creating the thing that she had been interested in, she was then able to expand on it from there. But a pitfall, or something that I see a lot of multi-hyphenate curious people do that kind of backfires on them, is thinking that they need to go from 0 to 100 next week.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm a corporate go-getter and I want to be an entrepreneur at the same time. Okay, so now how do I build out this huge event series for 500 people by next month? Okay, that's not going to happen. And that is okay, because how do you know you really want to do that? Right? What happens if you are able to have an event series for 500 people every single month and you hate it, and now you're strapped and saddled with this obligation? There's so many micro steps you can take in between here and there to, one, clarify the direction that you're going, two, gain more confidence in yourself to do that thing, and then three, build brick by brick to the entrepreneurial path that you're really excited about. And the same can be said for corporate as well. If you are a creative entrepreneur or just an entrepreneur in general, and you think, you know what, I could really use some psychological stability of being in the corporate world, or I kind of am craving that structure, does that mean you have to go from entrepreneurship to working at a Big Four consulting firm?
Right.
No.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
it's an amazing local small business that you love and already patron in your community. Can you work there a couple hours a week? Can you then move up into consulting for them on, you know, hiring practices or business management practices, product flow, et cetera? Could you then turn that into a more intense part-time job that gives you the stability, and then turn that into a full-time job? The micro steps is what I would tell people to focus on instead of the big leaps.
I love that so much, Janelle. And I totally resonate with that advice also. And something that I find often with founders that, you know, they come to me and they're like, this is the brand I'm building, or I want to build, but it has to be this by, you know, the end of the month. And they put so much pressure on themselves. And I used to be like that too. I used to put so much pressure on myself. I remember one time I stayed up, I want to say almost 24 hours building a website. I was like, I need a new website by tomorrow. And I put all my, like, it was a marathon of getting this done. And I remember being in a coffee shop the next day, still working on it. And a friend of mine came up to me and she's like, hey, are you okay? Like, it doesn't look like you slept much and you're drinking like a lot of coffee and you're just like really zoned in. I'm like, I don't know. I put this pressure on myself. I had to have a new website by the morning. And she was like, I think you should maybe take a break and like eat a snack and take a walk. And I was like, thanks for looking out, because I used to put these really big milestones and pressure on myself. And what I learned also over the years, being an entrepreneur for 15 years now, the less you could put pressure on yourself of this has to happen this certain way at this certain time. And you just more so have an intention, you have a goal, you have a focus, you're taking intentional action, but
Mhm.
you're more open to seeing what that looks like, right?
Yes.
And that's, I think, something that I, again, was really inspired by your own story of just the different ways you've diversified and being open to that. And again, this month I've had all these new opportunities of diversifying my career, my business, doing more consulting also. And I was like, this feels really good. It's not just one thing anymore. And I was really resistant to that, to be honest with you, for a while. But I really am now more open, and it's been such a great thing that I'm able to have all these different multifacets of my business and of my career come out, and it feels really good and nourishing. And that mental shift was something I was feeling stuck with. And again, you inspired me to change it up, and it feels really good.
Oh, that's incredible. I think something that came up for me as you were describing that shift that you just went through is the importance of curiosity. And I also think
Yes.
that curiosity is another like tried and true quality of a multi-hyphenate. If you find yourself, if you're thinking like, could I be a multi-hyphenate? And is that me? If you find yourself really curious about other ways that you could be making an impact or other shapes that your career could be taking, even if it's all like aiming at the same kind of like client or customer or industry. If you always stay in fashion, but you're curious, like, how are the other ways that my passion for this industry can manifest? That's another really great sign that you are a multi hyphenate at heart. You just have this curiosity.
I love that also. And I think leading with curiosity just tends to have cooler opportunities come to you because you are curious. You're not putting pressure necessarily on it, like it has to happen this way at this time, but you're like, ooh, I wonder how this is going to turn out. And it
Yeah.
just makes it more fun.
Yeah. You actually just gave me like a content idea in this
Okay,
conversation.
good. Good. That makes me really
I
happy.
know. Yeah.
That makes me really happy. Okay, so I obviously could talk to you for hours. I appreciate everything you put it out into the world and everything that you share. I know many people will be listening to this and being like, I'm so happy. I just found Janelle. How can someone work with you, listen to your podcast, take your course, all the things? Tell us all the info.
Yeah, so this section is going to be pretty meaty because I'm a multi hyphenate and there are lots
Yes.
of different
Yes.
ways that I do this work. So, first and foremost, definitely join my little corner of the internet. Find me at Janel Abrahami on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I actually am like a LinkedIn power user because I'm a career coach and comes with the territory. My podcast is called Lunch Break. You can search Lunch Break with Janel Abrahami anywhere you get your podcasts. And there I really talk about building a career that you're proud of, whether you're a corporate go-getter or an entrepreneurial spirit, it's all there for you, especially if you're some beautiful blend of both. And because I want to help you create your multi-hyphenate career with success and passion in a way that really works for you, I have a digital course called Pivot with Purpose, where you can clarify your corporate career goals and land an amazing new corporate career that actually gives you energy and makes you feel like you're doing something worthwhile so that you can have the time and space to pour into your entrepreneurial passions. And if you
Love
work
it.
at a company that is craving or could really use some career clarity, direction, networking, anything that falls under like the career development umbrella, and you are craving a guest speaker or keynote workshop, I do those all the time as well.
And shout out to the one you just did at NYU. Can we
Ah,
just say that too? Because you graduated from NYU, and to have such a full circle moment to then be a speaker at NYU doing what you love, I just,
my gosh.
it's
Yeah.
so cool.
I mean, if you have 2 more seconds, I would love to
Yes.
illustrate what that looked like for someone who's thinking like, okay, that's cool, but what does that actually look like in practice? And to help someone understand how I may be able to come in and help them with my expertise. So this was a day that was like literally taken from my vision board. It was a dream day. I started the day going to NYU in Midtown Manhattan, and I am an NYU alumna from graduate school. And I came in to speak to about 75 summer students in the Summer Publishing Institute, all about how to use LinkedIn to find sources, pitch their stories to editors, build their personal brands, and increase their income. I led this signature session that I created and customized it for that audience. I just so happened to also be right before the editor-in-chief of Cosmo magazine on the itinerary, which was
so cool.
Then I hopped back home. I crossed the river back to Hoboken, New Jersey, hopped back home. And because I work West Coast hours for my corporate job, got home just in time to do my corporate job, really move the needle on projects that I'm really passionate about. And then I ended the day by making some tweaks and updates to my online course called Pivot with Purpose that has had almost 100 happy customers and clients use it to clarify their corporate career goals. And then I marketed that a little bit on social media. And I ended the day reading A Court of Thorns and Roses because I'm a basic girly. But that was truly a dream day. And that's how easy it can look to be a multi-hyphenate. Granted, not every day looks like that, but it can look like something as dreamy and beautiful as last week.
I love it. I was nerding out watching all of your Instagram stories, and I think I even like voice memo like, woohoo, this looks like the best day ever. I'm just so proud of you. I want to thank you, one, for being you, two, for being such an inspiration, and personally I've learned a lot from you, and three, for being a part of the Emerging Brand Incubator. I love just how you've been building your brand, and I feel grateful to be on the journey with you, and I'm just so beyond proud of you.
Oh my gosh, likewise to everything. And to anyone listening, the reason I am able to like articulate this so clearly is because I've worked with Kelly to get there.
Oh,
I came to Kelly being like, what the heck do I do? I have I'm curious about so many things, and I have all these like hats that I'm wearing. How does it all make sense? Kelly is actually who helps me make it all make sense. So thank you.
Well, I'm beyond proud of you, and thank you so much for that shout out. Everyone go connect with Janel, listen to Lunch Break Podcast while you're working on all your career endeavors. And thank you, Janel. I'll talk to you soon.
Good. Bye.
Bye, everyone.